Hey everyone. Ooh, I see there are people here already. Thank you for being here today and coming out to celebrate the release finally of Watercolor Made Simple. I feel like we've been talking about it forever. And I know a lot of you who are here painting with me today pre-ordered a copy months and months and months ago. So thank you for sticking with me and for supporting me. I have really felt like this journey has been a fantastic one because of this amazing community that I am blessed to have around me and to celebrate. And I wonder if you can see my balloons. Maybe you caught my video on Instagram. My husband surprised me with some balloons and a confetti gun, which was really fun this morning. Okay, so before we get started, I see already we've got some comments coming in. Let me know that you're here, where you're tuning in from. And if you don't have your copy yet of Watercolor Made Simple, it's okay because you don't need it for today's painting session. I have a lot to share. So I usually try to go for like the 1 hour mark. If you're new to painting with me, welcome. And there's lots of familiar names that I see here, like Marianne and Annie and Kathleen. So yeah, we're just gonna have fun today. We're gonna celebrate the book. We're gonna paint a little bit using watercolor. I'm gonna take it nice and slow and very simply and show you some examples, and we're just gonna have fun. So I have some things to share before we get started, but it's just 1 o'clock, so let's share where you're tuning in from. Let me know if you got your book. I know my husband's waiting for his. If you hear the dog barking during the live, then it's Amazon. No one's trying to kill us. It's just the Amazon delivery guy. Yeah, so I guess because of our pre-order orders, the book there's like supply issue and transportation issue and all of that, which is awesome because again of your fantastic support and excitement for the book. So this is my way of saying thanks, hanging out with you and painting today. It is rainy here too, Brenda, and I have my candles burning. I set the mood. I have all of the lights on, so hopefully you can see, and you can see my desk okay. Yeah, it's a nice moody day to be in studio painting and just enjoying some art. Amazing. Sam's tuning in from Dallas, waiting for your copy. Seattle, Washington, amazing. Yeah, I'll tell you. So what I'm going to do is show you the project we're painting today, give you the tools and the paint colors. That way, as I'm chatting, you can get yourself sorted. It'll be in the email too, but I'll show you everything so you don't have to worry about that. And then I just have some things that I want to share and some thank yous that I want to share before we start painting. Thank you, Sandra. So nice to have you here. Amazing. Denise, oh my gosh, all the familiar names and new ones. Sweden, yay, Marianne. I hope one day I get to return to Sweden. It is a beautiful country. Yeah, so if you don't have your copy yet, it's coming. And oh, you got yours an hour ago. Amazing. And yeah, and you don't need it for today, so not to worry. And I'm curious what you think. I'm just excited for you all to paint with me. Cranberry sauce bubbling, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving to my US friends. What a great weekend to be celebrating. Thanksgiving is always my favorite holiday. I feel like just because we're not focused on gifts, it's just a matter of spending time with your loved ones, with friends, and really enjoying just some yummy food and some great moments. So it is my favorite holiday, so enjoy it so much and enjoy the food and all of the pumpkin spice pies. Okay, so Melinda, you don't have yours, it's coming. Oh my God, that's so funny. So Beverly just got hers in Florida 2 minutes ago. Yay! So I'm so curious, what do you think of the texture? My editor has just been fantastic through the process. And the publisher has been fantastic. They really did a beautiful job with making the book. I wanted it to feel just like a tactile, beautiful experience as well. Planning this book, if you've taken a class with me, maybe you were in Watercolors Made Simple a few years back and you've continued to learn along with me, you know that I'm all about the journey. Like I disperse the lessons in a way that you learn something, practice, get to painting, and hopefully it's a really tactile endorphin inducing experience. I'm going to talk about that probably in a YouTube video coming up, but I have gone down a rabbit hole yesterday. But the experience of painting and the experience of holding a book and making art, observing art really does boost endorphins. So on a day like today where it's rainy, you know, light your candle, make a hot drink, or pour yourself a glass of something chilled and refreshing, and really enjoy just not only the joy that we get, but there's a stimulant that we get in our body through these endorphins and serotonin, and that makes us feel good. So I wanted the book to give you that boost too, so that you could pick it up and be inspired to paint, or, you know, read the text and be encouraged by what I've created for you. So yeah, I'm so glad. Oh, thank you, Unscribbled. It is a really full experience. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we're 5 minutes past. If you can't stay for the entire session, please don't worry, because you'll have access to the recording. So it'll be the exact same link. It'll exist there. So if you want to tune back in, I'm going to try to go for the hour, but if I'm not finished, then we always go over, and I like to answer questions as I go as well. I want to start by thanking you. The book is actually dedicated to my creative community. So I'm just going to open it up. And it is dedicated for all of those. I'm going to try to do this without getting emotional. It has been hard, I have to say. It is for all of those who have an inner calling to create art and the courage to try. And I think that's, as an artist, we were pulled to do art, to make art, to express ourselves through our art, and have the courage to try, to succeed, to fail, and to share. And I read all of the DMs that I get and all of the emails of everyone's journey. So this is for you. Okay, I tried to do it without getting emotional. I apologize. So again, pre-ordering the book means a lot, because you have invested in me without getting anything back right away. So which is why I like to create moments like this where we can share and paint together. So I just want you to know that it has meant the world to me, and I feel like it is a privilege to be on this creative journey with you. Okay, so let's get past all of that emotional stuff. I'm going to show you my desk and what we're going to get started painting. So the book is broken out into some technique instruction as well as, you know, painting projects. I want us to start, I guess I should have had this prepared, with one of the first projects, which is the river rocks. Okay, so there is the page in the book. But what I want to do today is go over some really important techniques when it comes to watercolor painting. Even if you're not like so brand new to watercolor painting, these are techniques that you can review, that you can use in your sketchbook in practice. And each time you sit down to paint, you're working on how much water goes on your brush and how much water goes in your paint puddle. So it's a really great way to practice a fun and easy project that you can paint again and again. So this is my painting for the book. And again, you can sort of, you know, play around with the different shapes and variety of stones that you use for reference. I'm actually going to show you a few that I've picked up from my travels just to get you inspired, because maybe your rocks that are in your local natural area aren't the same colors or textures. So next time you're out, maybe on a hike, maybe near a body of water, go ahead and pick up some of these stones that you can use as an example for your next painting. Because it's a really great way to work on wet on wet, dry on wet, shading, and your value scale. So again, if these are all new to you, that's okay. They'll be covered in the book. But if you are a more experienced artist, you know how important it is to develop and work on those techniques and those skills. So again, here's the second one that I painted. So I just painted it really quickly last week, thinking about today's live. There's my original. So depending on how often you paint these beautiful rocks and what colors you use and the intensity of your paint mixture, it can look completely different every time. So for the book's purposes, I really wanted it just to be a simple practice. Last week, I again wanted to interpret it a little bit more differently. And today I'm going to give myself creative freedom, and I'll use the colors that I used last week, and I'll hold this close by. I'll have it just in front of me, but I really want to see what happens today in terms of how the stones turn out and what we do in fact together. Now, if you want, I'll be drawing these shapes onto my fresh sheet of paper, and I'll show you that as well, but you can even just really quickly sort of draw out some shapes for you if you want to create your own pile. That's totally up to you. But here are the colors I'm using. So I have to, and I was going to do this after, but I'll do this before. I have to say, you know that I'm a fan of Winsor & Newton. I have had the pleasure of working with them over the last year or so, and they have been so amazingly supportive of this book, my project, my community, so much so that we have I'm going to open up the chat so I can make sure I can see it. You know that we have a 40% off coupon. I'm going to even type it in here so you have it. If you're in North America, feel free to go to Winsor & Newton's website. So give me one sec. That's the coupon, the promo code you can use. And they have offered my creative community exclusively 40% off. I'm not an affiliate. I won't make any commissions from it. It really is Winsor & Newton and my way of saying thank you to this creative community. We want to offer you an opportunity to get some supplies if you are missing supplies from the book that you would like to pick up, and to save during this time and to enjoy. But they have even gifted me with their beautiful paper. So I love painting on the Winsor & Newton cotton paper. So I'm going to show you the pad because you'll ask, of course. And I like the fine press. So it's cold pressed, but it's fine grain watercolor paper. Really beautiful to paint on. And it just allows that beautiful depth of color as well as we're painting. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the colors so you can get them sorted while I'm chatting with you. So yellow ochre, it's a staple in my painting kit. Permanent rose is another color I'll be dispensing. Sap green, which is another favorite of mine. Raw umber, which I really like for earthy tones. And of course, Payne's gray, because I can't paint without my Payne's gray. So Winsor & Newton, thank you so much again to support artists. I'm going to flip over the cameras for a sec. When brands like Winsor & Newton support artists and they support creative communities, it really, again, just makes an opportunity for us to be able to enjoy painting more, and even just be able to share a painting. So if you're painting and want to share with Winsor & Newton, tag them, hashtag Winsor & Newton. They'll see the posts, and please tag me as well so I can see it as well. Okay. So before we go further, there are a few people that I want to thank. So Manassi at Winsor & Newton, who really was so passionate about this book, and again, creating these opportunities for us to paint with supplying me some beautiful fresh tubes of paint and paper, and again, offering the community our 40% off discount. I have something that I'm going to share at the end that again is all of Manassi's work. So thank you, Tim DePeck, who has always been a huge supporter of me as well through Winsor & Newton. Again, it's just fantastic to see brands like that support artists and creatives. It really is inspiring. There's someone behind the scenes who has been vital to help me share this book, and just has been a big support with Life I Design. Her name is Emily Caulfield. I could not have done what I've done through just helping promote this book and sharing these bonuses with you and making sure you have everything that you need. So Emily, I think she's on this live. So if everyone can maybe give like a high five to Emily and show her some love, that would be awesome, because again, she has been just vital. I couldn't have launched this book without her help. So Emily, thank you. Okay, so we're going to start painting, and then I have something else to share. So if you missed the end, no worries, because again, you'll be able to watch the replay, but we have something really fun that we're going to be doing. Okay, so hopefully you have all your paint colors out. Oh, I should mention, I'm going to use 2 round brushes. So these are from my Life I Design set, a number 8 and number 1. So the sizes sometimes don't match up between brands. So just look at whatever brushes you have and make sure that in relation to the size that you're painting, they feel comfortable. So that's what I would recommend. Let me go ahead because I want to be able to, there you go, to talk to you. I have just a mixing dish. This is just a plate. Actually, I pick them up from secondhand stores, from anywhere when I'm out and about and I'm inspired by what it is that I'm finding on the shelves. Okay, so again, just in case you want to take a screenshot, I was looking through my rock collection. So these are all from different places actually. Scandinavia, Italy, Iceland. Just, I don't see colors like this necessarily in Ontario when I'm traveling. I'm going to turn on one more light, just hopefully you can be able to see better. Nope, that was on. Everyone can see okay. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can turn. There we go. That's a bit better. So what I did was I was looking at the stones that I had around me, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to pull out some new colors, or maybe just even have them next to me so that they inspire my painting. And in the book I talk about this, but if you have ever taken a class with me, you know that I try to encourage you to have things around you that you can draw examples by. And again, even if you're thinking of color palettes and sometimes you're at a loss, having something like, you know, these stones to inspire what you're going to paint and work on can help you with creating a color story. So even, I'm going to move these out of the way for a sec. Even if I just were to pick out these three, I really love this light blue, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that. This light blue and this almost like burgundy sort of mauvey tone with this yellow. So even just using physical, tangible objects that you can then bring into your art practice to help you with color, your mood board, your color story, what colors to start with, that's a good jumping off point. And then you can start using that to mix your watercolor paints and use that as your color family. So I think what I'm going to do is just have them off to the side. I really like them, and I like that I can see the textury, just the holes and the shapes. And again, when you can look at something close up and observe it, it just allows you to understand what it is that you're painting more. So these stones can be a little bit more abstracted. They can be more literal. It really is up to you and what you feel like this, you know, in this moment. I'm just going to disperse some of this paint. I always say, you know, use colors that you love, paint subjects that you enjoy, and you'll enjoy the painting process even more. With this book, I try to give you a nice variety because I want you to try each motif at least once. If you haven't painted an animal, I've created a sheep for you to paint. If you haven't painted florals, I'm surprised because I painted a lot of florals in my classes. So, but I've given you some cool floral options that I think are a nice variety. And the apple is another favorite of mine in the book. So try painting them once. And then if you feel drawn to a specific thing that I've shown you how to paint, go and explore that more. That's the best way to develop you as an artist and your style as well. Okay, now I'm going to draw the stones on my sheet of paper here. I have my pad of Winsor & Newton cotton paper. And what I'll do is I'll have it in front of me. You can use a pencil or you can use a watercolor pencil. So the watercolor pencil is soluble, so it will start to run a little bit. Completely up to you. I like pencil lines. I feel like they create a bit of a shadow for when I'm painting, and I will draw it a little bit darker. I'm just trying to see if I want to change up how I'm going to paint this. Maybe I'll hold it up this way. So again, if you want to take a snapshot of it, feel free. I'm going to have it in front of me and then just draw to give myself a little bit of space. And you know what? Let me open up the chat to see if you have any questions too. Yay. Oh, Emily, good. Yay. Give Emily some love. Okay. And if you have any questions, I'm going to keep the chat open. And just please let me know. Okay. So I'm going to use a pencil because I really want you to see what it is that I'm painting. And I'm going to make sure we are on camera or in focus. So I'm going to start with this top stone, and I'm holding my pencil, as you can see, at the very top. So I'm not holding it tightly. I want this to be a loose drawing. So just hold your pencil at the very top. If you have like a 2B, that'll be good because it'll be dark enough, but you can erase the lines and it won't crease the paper, like it won't indent the paper as you're drawing. There's my first one. So I'm just following, and if you have the book, you can go ahead and trace. I've got traceables in the back, which is amazing. If not, just wing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our goal is to allow ourselves a bit of room to explore, have some creative freedom, and really enjoy the process. And again, if you want to use any stones, maybe you live near the beach or the ocean, how amazing is that? And you want to collect your own. So I've overlapped the stones that are below, and I did that on purpose because I want to create a bit of shading. I love kneadable erasers, so I'm just going to grab my kneadable eraser and see if there's any questions. The rocks again. Yes, let me put them on my, and I will zoom in. Oop. I want to put it on the white. There you go. Aren't those cool? And there was a pink one too. Where's this pink one? They're so neat, right? They're almost, so that one, it looks a little dark, but it's almost like an eggplanty. There we go. Like a burgundy one. So take a picture of that. So what I'm going to do, I have my kneadable eraser. I'll leave that there for a second. And this top stone is overlapping the ones underneath. So I'm just going to pick up, and I might even use my Blackwing eraser here a little bit. I like the kneadable eraser because it doesn't leave residue behind. You can see this one does. But once you start putting paint, I got this new contraption to do these lives and I really love it because I can zoom in, zoom out. Okay, so there are almost all of our rocks. Let's pop another one in here. That's going to be underneath because that's how we'll be painting some depth. And then let's put another one in right here. So it's very similar to the painting project in the book, but again, layer them, play around with how you position them and just have fun with it. So now this is a little bit dark for my liking. What I'm going to do is just using my kneadable eraser, and I kind of move it around in my hand to warm it up. And then I just pick up the extra graphite. You can roll it. I want it to be light enough so that I can paint over top of it, but dark enough for you to see. So if you want your pencil lines to be a little lighter, please go ahead. Okay, maybe what I even might do is let's leave these for inspiration up here because I want to mix some new colors. So now when you're mixing watercolor, remember the amount of water. I wonder if I can even put my water jar a bit in frame so you can see. When you're, so I've got my paper towel handy so I can wipe my brush off. Maybe you can't see the water jar, but that's the least important out of what's in frame. So let me know if you want to see my water jar at all. Okay, so the amount of water on your brush will affect your puddle that you're mixing of your watercolor paint, as well as how much water you're putting in that little puddle. So I always like to pick up a little bit. I have a very clean palette I normally paint on. I'm going to show you this is my everyday palette that I paint on. And then I just keep putting in more of the watercolor paint as it goes, but you can see it's really messy. I actually, I don't love washing off my watercolor palette, so I use dishes like this for moments when I need to start fresh. So just so you know, you don't have to wash your palettes off. Don't use plastic. I'd rather you use like an old dish or something than using a plastic palette. So the amount of water that's on my brush will affect my watercolor petal. I'm actually going to move my water so it's not in the shade. There we go. And the amount that I'm applying using my brush, I'm kind of just dipping into the puddle until I get a nice transparent consistency. So that consistency will allow me to paint some really light stones versus the layers that I'll apply afterwards that are a little bit darker. There we go. I'm moving around technology here, and I've got some flowers and things on my desk too, and confetti, which is so fun. Go to Instagram if you want to see me shoot off a confetti cannon. It's like a little cannon, so fun. Anyway, got distracted. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I really like this stone. My yellow ochre is a little bit on the warm side. If you had the Windsor yellow, that would be a really cool starting point too, but I don't want to complicate it. I just want this to kind of be easy, free flowing. So let's start with that. I've just dipped my brush into more water. I have lots of water in my puddle, and I think what I'll do is I'll start with this stone here. Just kind of lower my desk a bit. And I'm just going to draw, and I'm using like the side or the belly of the brush to create this really nice even layer of watercolor following my pencil lines. And I'm doing it again, I'm not worried about staying in the lines, and you can see the pencil line is creating a bit of a shadow. So don't worry about the pencil lines, embrace them and really enjoy them. So now while this little puddle is wet, I'm going to go ahead and load up my brush with more paint. So the brush is soaking up that paint. And I think what I'll do is I'll work on a little bit of texture. So again, it'll be different than the book, and I'm just playing and seeing what happens today. So I'm just dabbing. Let me actually zoom in for you. And by dabbing, the wet paper is absorbing those brush strokes, and I'm being as random as possible. And then the more intense wet watercolor paint will start to spread a little bit, but also I'll have moments where the paper maybe is a little bit drier, where the spots and dots will sit on top of the paper versus being absorbed into the paper. And then what I like to do sometimes is just have a look and see if I need to blend out anywhere. So I'm just going to blend this side here, creating a little bit more of a deeper value of that yellow ochre, and even creating a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to imagine the light source is coming from this direction, okay? So from top to bottom. So I'm just creating a little bit of texture. And you can even draw in some lines. And again, the more you sort of look at stones and rocks and observe, the more you'll see the different variations in the characteristics, okay? And I mean, we could leave that stone like that and be done. So for now, I'm going to leave it. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and use my raw umber. I just want to make sure I dispensed raw umber. Yes, raw umber. And I want to see what color, so I'm just using, again, my brush to pull out a little bit of that really pigmented paint. So the Winsor Newton Professionals versus like the Cotman brand, really the biggest difference is the pigment load. So you get a lot of that paint color, so you don't have to worry too much about adding a ton of water. So if you feel like maybe your color is not as bold or brilliant, then that's the difference. So the pigment that you're using or the paint you're using just doesn't have as much of that color in the makeup of it, okay? So I think what I'll do is I'm looking at the yellow. I think I'm gonna paint this one. I had it green originally, but I think I'm gonna paint it this warm, lovely tone because it'll complement the yellow. So sometimes I just take a moment and think just compositionally what feels good. If I can bring them across from one another. And even here, so my brush is pretty dry. I don't have a lot of paint in my mix or on my paper. So I'm just gonna take some water. I love really light muted watercolors. It's just, again, my style. So I love it when there's just a little bit of a wash of color. And then while it's still wet, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe off my brush. And I like this highlight that is just naturally occurring. So I'm going to pull away. So I'm lifting color. And again, if that's new to you, you'll learn about it more in the book. But I just thought that would look really pretty to give it a really nice depth. And it creates that sort of three-dimensional, not flat look. I'm going to take a little bit more of that paint. And while it's wet, I'm just going to go underneath the top stone here to create a bit of shadow. So again, my light source is coming from the top, and I can even go while it's still wet. Maybe let me go ahead and zoom in. While it's still wet, I can create some of these nice speckling and just letting it settle into the page. Okay, because as the water starts to get absorbed by the paper, there are different degrees of wet on wet. I can even come back, let's go ahead and mix up some of this umber again. I can even go back to this stone here. I can feel that it's still cool. So if you feel your watercolor paper and it feels like it's cool, that means it's still wet. So you can even still go back in and just using the tip, and I change the direction of how I'm holding the brush, I can go ahead and stipple in, or I can take my small brush, load it up with a bit of paint, and I can really create these lovely sort of dots. And I can even blend them out a slight bit, just again to create some definition. And that is wet on dry-ish, wet on damp, if you want to call it wet on damp. And again, it's just practicing essential watercolor techniques in a really fun way. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Okay, the rocks again, I showed them. Fantastic. Okay, if there's any questions, let me know. So now when I look at these two, they're very similar on camera, but in person, there's a bit more of a yellow tone to this yellow ochre. Let's bring in a little bit of, I'm feeling like a little bit of the yellow ochre and green. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more of this yellow ochre, and I'm going to see what it looks like. So I need a bit more water. So you're in control when you're mixing your watercolor petals. This petal here resembles, I want to say like a creamy milky texture. And this one here is more of like a tea watery texture. Okay, so same intensity or same color, different intensity based on how much water we add in. So I'm not going to wipe off my brush, but I'm going to add a bit more water to it because I have studio lights on and everything. My watercolor is drying a bit quicker. But let's see what this looks like when I mix sap green and yellow ochre. And I like to have these test sheets handy if I want to test out a color first. And I feel like it's a little too bright for me. Again, I like more muted. So I'm going to take some of this Payne's Gray, and Payne's Gray is quite strong on its own. And I'm just going to mix a tiny bit of Payne's Gray to the mix and see if I can create, I want like a deeper green and then use my Payne's Gray. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to go with it. And see if I have a green rock that I pulled. I know I do have green rocks. There's another blue one. I don't, but I do have one because I saw it yesterday. But I thought, let's just go with it, right? This is even a little bit more green. It's almost like a gray green. Okay, so I am actually going to mix a tiny bit more Payne's Gray. Oh, that's turning into a gray green. So it's just experimenting and exploring when you're mixing color, and then document it. Ooh, I like that. Feels like more of a gray green, which I love. Okay, so again, it's a nice, loose, watery. You can see the transparency in my mix there. And I'm going to go ahead and paint this stone here. I'm going to paint two the same color, but I'm going to change how much water is on my brush. I really love that. So again, take your time when you're mixing your colors and really enjoy experimenting and exploring. And I feel like these stones really are just an excuse to give us something to paint as we're working on techniques, which is really fun because then you feel like you're actually painting something. So again, I'm just going to deepen a little bit and add wet on wet. And I want this one to be a bit textured, so I don't mind as I keep creating this bold. I'm just going over top while it's wet. And I don't mind if the watercolor starts to create some interesting texture and marks while it's wet. I'm just adding some more marks to it because again, that just creates some really natural depth. Oh, I really love that. And again, look how it's starting to contrast. So we'll go back and layer after. Oh, I really do love that. Okay, so this was a good color mix. Note, it's yellow ochre. So when you want to remember what you've mixed, and some Payne's Gray. So this is even a nice deeper, darker mix of color, which is fantastic. Let me zoom out for you. And I'll grab some more of that yellow ochre. Oh, I wonder what the burnt umber would look like mixed into this mix. We can do that one next. So this is nice. It's looking like a really nice inky blue. Let me add a tiny bit more of this yellow ochre. And what I want to do is complement that stone that we just painted. Oh, I really love that. Okay, so new mix, yellow ochre and Payne's Gray. For those of you who know, I love Payne's Gray. And what I'm even going to do is let me go ahead and add a few spots and see what happens. You can even move them around. just to give it again a little bit more interest. So now I'm looking at my composition, and I do have my reference. So if you have the book, maybe pull out the stones or turn to that page. I do have it for reference. I'm using it just compositionally to see sort of what it looks like, but I'm more focused on what's happening on my page to see where I should go next with this color. And I kind of like this stone here, and I feel like they'll complement each other because they're back to back. It'll, to me, feel almost like we found them together, you know, side by side on like the riverbank or something. And even though they're slightly different, you might not be able to tell. Oh, you should be able to tell on camera. They look like they could have been found together, very close to one another, and they'll complement each other here. And I like that they're dark. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, and I'm almost pulling that watercolor petal and guiding it so that it completely fills my page. And again, working on paper like this that's fully cotton, it really is lovely because it's easy to create that beautiful texture. And then because it's underneath the stone that's on top here, I'm going to go ahead and wet on wet, just create that little bit of shadow and texture, which is really cool. So again, the light's coming in this way, and I might even put the lines and the extra bits. And it's very wet. So if I continue to add paint to it, it'll continue to pull that paint away. So I'm just going to let it dry ever so slightly. And as I'm looking at this one here, I'm not crazy. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in. I'm not crazy about how there's that demarcation line. So I just cleaned off my brush. I'm wiping it off slowly or lightly, and I'm just going to pull some of that paint to blend it away. And if that blending doesn't work for you, do some lifting off where you can create some texture. So with a dry brush, I'm gonna wipe it off, just pulling away to create some interesting texture. I just didn't love that line, and it's gonna happen here because I used a lot of water. So again, you're in control. When the paint is still wet on the page is your opportune time to go ahead and blend and move it around, but I can just pull away, create some really cool texture, and even soften a little bit, which is really neat. So again, these are like essential watercolor techniques that the more you practice as you're painting larger pieces, you'll come back to moments like this when you're working on things and remember what's in your toolkit in terms of watercolor techniques that you can use. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Let's see if there's any questions. I'm going to have a drink of water. Is everyone painting along okay with me? Let me know in the comments. Sunny Florida, send us some sun. It's raining, a little bit windy and cool today. Yay. Oh, Althea, nice to see you here. Everyone's waiting for the books. Yeah, so you don't need the book today to paint with me. Currently out for delivery. Amazing. Okay, so I'm giving my paper a chance to dry a little bit, and also thinking about the next color that I'm going to mix. So I'm thinking this top one here is going to be a permanent rose mix. And again, I'm going to dull it down because the permanent rose will be really bright on this page, which I feel like is really an indication of what the weather's like outside and this moody kind of tone. But I'm loving these two colors here that we mixed up, and I just put my finger in my wet paint there. So in the book, I liked that just that muted rosy kind of tone that I mixed up. So I'm going to mix some of this permanent rose, and I'm going to show you how I do a little bit more color mixing and exploring. So this is permanent rose on its own. It's a beautiful, cool, even if you had a magenta, it's a beautiful, cool sort of magenta tone. And if I add a little bit of yellow ochre, I can warm it up and create this really pretty sort of corally color. And then if I want to tone it even more, I'll kind of go across the color wheel and I'll add a little bit of this Payne's Gray. So I'm not mixing a ton of this color yet because I want to test it to make sure it's a color that I have in mind. And it's really close. So I might add a little bit more of this Payne's Gray to see if I can create maybe a little bit more of this yellow ochre to see if I can create a color that I'm thinking of that resembles this stone. So I'm going to put that stone up there so you can see it better. And if I don't get it, exact, as long as I get close enough, that will make me happy. And that kind of feels close enough. So I mixed, hopefully you can see that. The colors that I used were a little bit of yellow ochre. So I'll mix a bigger puddle. And hopefully you can see me. Is my head in the way? I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna move me to the top and then open up my chat. So yellow ochre, and I'm gonna add a bit more water. So if I add more water, then the paint will flow more, and then I can always add more paint to the mix. So a bit more yellow ochre, and then adding some of that Payne's gray. And Payne's gray is a super strong color. I was gonna say go easy on it to begin, and then you can always darken it and deepen it and add more. So I did add a ton, which makes it purpley, which is not a bad color. It's a nice eggplant color. But to tone that, I'm gonna grab more of this yellow ochre. And that will help bring it back to more of like a burgundy. I'm gonna even grab a little bit more of this. Still a little bit more on the purpley side. So let's grab a bit more of this permanent rose. And then I'll add more water to the mix. I really like how light and muted. So if you want to lighten a color with watercolor, you know to add water, not white paint. So again, it feels a little bit more on the purpley tone. So I'm just going to warm it up with a little bit more yellow ochre. So let's do one more and then we're going to use it. Yeah, I like that. So again, I'll compare. So it's very close. Okay, so that's why it's really neat to explore color mixing, because you never know what you're going to discover. So I'm just adding a bit more water to my brush. I just want to make sure that this stone here is dry. So I think what I'll do is I'll paint this little guy on its own, and that will give me an opportunity to paint this one. I might run into some trouble because these two are touching, but I haven't quite decided what color I want to paint this one yet. I'm thinking of a light blue just because I think it'll be a pretty contrast with the goldy and more earthy tones. So let's go ahead and lay this down so we can see what it looks like. And again, I'm just using the side of my brush, the tip. So round brushes, you can paint pretty much anything. You really don't need a ton of brushes to get started with. By just using the tip of the brush, I can go ahead and get really nice and close. And I'm just gonna dab. Again, the more texture, the better. Let me go in close so you can see that. Yeah, what a great color. I'm gonna have to remember to put that in my sketchbook. So I use my sketchbooks for color mixing so I can record them. And I think what I'll do is I'm just going to dip my brush in water. So I haven't dipped it in the paint again. And I want to do a first wash of this because it's on top of the other stones. These are pretty strong and these ones are pretty light. I want it to be a lighter stone. So almost like that, like a pinky sort of tone. And then I can add a little bit of interest to it. So again, just following my pencil line and filling it in. Okay, I'm gonna let it dry a little bit because I do want to create some texture on this one, and I think we'll do a little bit of splattering. Okay, let me pull it away a bit. So you can see I used more water on my brush, so it's the same color mix as this one here. I just diluted the paint color by dipping my brush using whatever paint was left to create that really nice light stone. And again, because we put in that darker value here on the yellow ochre, you can see it's created a shadow automatically, which is really neat. I will probably come back and go underneath this one. But if I were to do that now, because this stone is really wet, if I were to even touch it a slight bit with this darker color, that wet stone will just draw the paint towards it, and I don't want it to feather or bleed or anything. But here, I really love how this is solid and textured, but again, if I wanted to create a little bit of highlight while it's damp, so it's still drying, I can go ahead and with a clean brush, just draw up some of that watercolor that's on the paper to create a little bit of a light spot. Okay, that's called lifting. Okay. Friends at work but watching. Oh my God, I love it. I hope you're having maybe a hot coffee, painting along. Amazing. Good, good, good. Does anyone have questions? Again, it's a fairly easy, if you've never picked up watercolor, you'll have to go to the beginning of the book, to the technique part, but it's a really easy way of practicing the essential watercolor techniques so that you can work on your wet on wet and wet on dry, and you're lifting and creating some, just a beautiful, easy piece that, again, is fantastic for practice and fun to do, I think, anyway. Okay, so now looking at this one here, and it does feel like it's drying. I love this natural sort of darker area here that looks like it's shadowed. It's just the way that the stone is drying. So I loaded up my brush and I'm just following that natural curve. And because it is a slight bit damp still, it'll feather a little bit on its own, but I can wash off the brush because I don't want more pigment. And then I can just, and feel free to turn. I don't like to make you dizzy during these lives, but if it feels more comfortable for your hand, turn the page and allow that page to, allow your hand to be nice and comfortable. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get messy and I'm going to pull up. So what I'm doing is just loading my brush again with that color that we mixed. I actually picked up a little bit of the permanent rose by accident. So let me go ahead and deepen it, and I'm just going to flick a little bit of color. My fingers are going to get messy, but I just want to splatter a little bit of color, and it may go everywhere, and that's okay. But doing that allows you to create a little bit of texture without having to stipple and make it feel really contrived. Like it'll feel a little bit more organic. And what you could do also is cover your page with just little sheets of paper. I probably should have done that, but we haven't paid to this one yet. And I don't really mind. I might even splatter the whole thing when we're done with it. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this one to dry, what I'm going to do is take a look at the other stones in the mix here. And I think what I might even do is do a bit more splattering. Let's go for it. I've got some cut sheets of paper that I use. So whenever I have these, like whenever I'm cutting watercolor paper, I keep whatever has fallen away because they'll come in handy not only to cover your page, but also so that you can swatch on. So I think what I'll do is a little bit more splattering. Again, while we're waiting for those big stones to dry. So I'm going to pick up my brush again and maybe use this Payne's Gray mix. And let's do a little bit of splattering here. So I'm just, again, flicking it with my finger. You'll get messy, but if I go in close, you can see that really lovely natural texture, which is kind of neat. And then just let it dry. And by covering everything else, hopefully you won't be making a mess everywhere. So I'm going to grab this Payne's Gray. So I'm going to go just Payne's Gray, neat, not mixed with anything. I'm going to try not to make a mess. Let's go ahead and cover it and just do a few more splatters in that area there. And again, lift everything off. And then what you can even do is I'll grab my smaller brush, I'll load it up with some Payne's Gray, maybe I'll even mix in this gray, and I'm just going to dab it on the paper towel. So I want you to see this. So just by touching it on the paper towel is absorbing the water that's on my brush, but there's still color on my brush. So I can even come in and just dry brush. So this is dry on dry, and just dry brush some lines. So again, when I look at rocks, they're beautiful, almost like a tree, like the inside of a tree when you can see the ring once it's cut. It's almost like really nice, dark striated lines. And then I can even go in and create that, this is dry, create that extra little bit of value, so nice deeper value to make it look like this top stone is casting a little bit of a shadow. And I can even go here. So this is dry on dry. So I'm using a smaller brush. And again, if you dab off the excess water, you really create that nice dry sort of brush effect. Oh, and I left my brush in the water, which is a no-no. So it's starting to feel good, and I'm thinking to do a light blue here. What do you guys think? And just do Payne's gray, maybe with a tiny bit of green. I think that would be really nice. I'm thinking about this color, and I don't want to bring out the other Winsor blue because I want the colors to all go together. Because I started with this color palette, if I finish with this color palette, it'll create a really nice cohesive grouping of stones. I wonder, should I leave this one? No, let's add a little bit. Let's add a little bit to it. Okay, any questions? Would you change techniques when painting outdoors? Different palette, yeah. Depending on how warm it is, I would still use a palette where I dispense the tube paints, but you would need probably a lot more water just with the air, like the wind and the sun. Your painting will start to dry more, and even your puddle mixes. So when I'm painting without all the lights on, because I've got studio lights and ring lights, it's warm. So it'll dry my paint, and even my little puddles that I dispensed just less than an hour ago, looking at the time, they've already started to feel like they've dried a little bit. So I would make sure that you have a spray bottle. So spray bottle handy, and then you can always spray your mixture, and you have to work a bit faster. So when you're painting outdoors, like maybe think about sketching in watercolor and then painting when you're at home, but lots of water would be probably ideal. Okay. Amazing. Oh, amazing. Gretchen's on her way for Thanksgiving, probably. Marianne's painting along. Amazing. Good, good, good. Okay. So I am, again, thinking about that blue. So I'm going to grab some of this Payne's gray, and I might even let me turn my palette around, because I want to do, again, a little bit more exploring. Grab my bigger brush. So I'm adding a bit of water. Oh, I've got some, I can see I have a bit of permanent rose, and my water's really dirty. I don't get stressed about using 1 cup for my cool tones, 1 for my warm tones. I'm just, if it starts to feel like it's too dirty and it's affecting my color mixes on my palette, then I'll change it. Let me grab one of these new ones. So I was thinking something like this blue. Now that I'm comparing it, the Payne's gray feels a little bit purpley, and this stone has a tiny bit of a green tint. So I'm going to grab some of that. Maybe I'll use the umber. I'll use the umber to see. Let me mix a little bit first and mix that to my Payne's gray. So it did gray it down a little bit. If I had the Winsor yellow, it would make it a punchier green color. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's gray back to it. And you can see how, again, really watery my paint mix is. It's, again, my personal preference. I love more muted tones and loose watery tones of color. So you decide if you want something that's a bit more intense. I feel like that's closer. I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's gray. That's actually a lot more Payne's gray. But because there was so much umber in it, I feel like it muted it a little too much. So I added that warm tone to a very cool Payne's gray. But again, I really love these watered down. Okay, that feels very Payne's gray. Let me add a bit more water to the mix. And I feel like that's it. Again, if I compare the two, I'm gonna add a little bit more, I think. So it's a process, right? And it's experimenting, taking your time, and then I write down my color mixes. So I'm gonna just go for it. Just go for it. This is nice and dry, so I know that as I start to paint this rock here, it won't bleed into the one that is above it. Okay, so it does feel a little bit darker. So because it's darker, let me zoom in. I just added water to my brush because water, as we know, dilutes watercolor, right? So just going in here. And there's a bit of splatter there, so I'm just going to blend it away. And even just using this stone as an example, I think that finishes our composition really nicely. It feels like it goes. Now the light source is coming this way, so what I'll do is pick up a bit more paint And I want to make sure that that shadow from that top rock, okay, gives it a nice bit of shadow. And I'm just going to dab wet on wet to create some of that lovely texture. And I don't know why I drew it so pointy here. I'm just going to extend it with my brush. I didn't love that it was a pointed edge there. So we'll just go ahead. Let it dry, see what happens. And again, I'm contemplating, do we add a little bit more to this one? I love, like in person, it almost feels like there's a bit of depth to this one because of the two colors that we mix, so the yellow ochre and the permanent rose. But maybe I'll do just a little bit of texture. Maybe we'll even do a little bit of splatter too. Hopefully you can see that. Just to break it up a bit so it's not so solid. And again, I don't mind that the splatter is going elsewhere. You could even paint the shadows beneath. I'll show you the one that I did last week, just to create a little bit more. So I just put my brush in water and I'm just moving it around a bit. And because it's really watered down, that texture, and I kind of even like those three little dots, the texture, I'm just going to, sorry, I got distracted, add a little bit more depth there, which looks good. So the texture will dry a little bit lighter and be a little bit more matte. So I'm feeling like this last one here might be in need of, again, just a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to go in, let me zoom out a bit, to my raw umber. So even though we used yellow ochre, I'm just going to go into my raw umber here. And I think what I'll do is show you another little technique. So this is fully dry. If I wanted to add a little bit of texture, but don't want harsh demarcation lines, I'm going to go in and just with a wet brush, really quickly go over top of the stone to dampen the page, okay? And then I can start to bring in some textury lines here. And because the page is already wet, they'll disperse a little bit, so they won't be harsh demarcation lines, and maybe even just a few dots here. I really like that highlight, so I'm going to leave it. Actually, maybe I will go over it a tiny bit now. It kind of looks a bit stark. Just a tiny bit. Because the page was wet, it's warmed up so that the watercolor paint can kind of just be drawn into it. I love how this is starting to dry. It's still a little bit wet, so I'm just washing my brush off. I'll pick up this beautiful inky color here, and I'm just going to maybe even take a little bit off on my paper towel, but I'm just going to go in and see if I can deepen it a slight bit. Okay, and then I would call this pretty much done, but once it dries, what you can do is add in just a little bit of shadow in between the rocks and throughout to ground it. I want to show you that, but I really need this to dry a little bit more, so I'm going to leave a beat and maybe answer some questions, and then we can go back and see if there's anything else we want to add to it. Like this feels a little bit light to me, so I might even add a little bit of texture there and then create just a little bit of shadow in and around the stones so it grounds them. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. I am happy to answer them. Let me check the time. Oh, we're almost at the 1 hour mark. So we won't go too much longer, like maybe another 10 minutes. I want to share one more thing with you, and then let's see if we can add a little bit of shadow to the mix to our stone. So was that easy, fun, something that you think you'll do, maybe explore a little bit more of? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, that would be super. And while you are commenting, what I'll do is I'll share with you something else that we have going on. So now that the book is out, what I'm told by the publisher is that reviews are everything for the success of the book. So as part of a thank you, I have 2 things that I'm creating for you. So the first one is in partnership with Winsor Newton. If you submit a review and share it with us, you can screenshot your review of the book, honest review, really just your personal take on the book. We will put your name in a draw for one of 3 $50 gift cards to shop at windsornewton.com. Again, North America only. It was technology-wise, it's really hard to create promo codes for every country. I wish we could, but again, it's a tech thing. So if you're not eligible because you don't live in North America, I'm hosting a live painting session in January where we'll paint the swallow, which is my favorite painting project in the book. If you're part of the book launch VIPs, you're already invited to that event. But if you want to join, again, just asking that you go on to Amazon or Goodreads and you give us an honest review of the book, and then we will, and then share it with us so we can add you to our email list and invite you to that painting session. So 3 $50 gift cards courtesy of Winsor & Newton, yay! And another free painting session in January to help you get going with creativity. It's a great time of year to maybe set some personal art goals and to work on maybe just, again, work on your personal joy of building those endorphins in a beautiful and tactile way. Okay, so hopefully you can join me for that. Oh, amazing. Jean just got the book. Oh, that's so fun. So please share with me, tag me, send me an email, a DM. I would love to see where you got your copy, like what part of the world you're in. And again, I hope that you paint for hours with me. Just another opportunity to create some art. Sam saying, I love the non-stress style of this. Oh, there really is no way to mess it up. Just have fun and play. I mean, and in this type of practice, when we're working on skill and technique, yes, we're painting something that is something you can connect with. So it's not abstract, them being stones, but you can paint them in an abstract and really free-flowing way. They don't need to resemble something in order to be beautiful or for the practice to be effective. So that is my goal. Oh, thanks, Gretchen. Sandra. Oh, amazing. Amazing, Sandra. Where do you send the screenshots? So you can DM me on social media. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or just email it to me, Nicki@lifeidesign.com. Carmelita, your book should be coming soon. I know some people are expecting it end of November as well. Hopefully it'll be sent out sooner. But yeah, just be patient, paint along, go back to the bonus portion of the pre-order page that we created for you, and hopefully you'll be painting. Good. Yes, thank you, Catherine. Oh, rock symbolized foundation, and you give us just that. Oh, amazing. Yes, just to give you that support and foundation, and then hopefully encouragement to keep going is amazing. And again, if you've taken classes with me, you know, I try to offer you sort of the next stage and the next stage, and maybe work on some things that you can come back to and maybe grow from. So I kind of stretch you out of your comfort zone and create, again, a more nurturing sort of painting project, and then stretch you a bit more. So I'm hoping that I've been able to create that with this book through the variety and the different painting projects. But yeah, I'm curious what you think. Let me know. So I'm looking at my stones here. I think what I'm going to do is show you how I mix up some shadowing color, and then we can always wrap up. I'm going to check my notes because I have notes in front of me. So the Winsor Newton giveaway ends December 3rd. So we'll announce winners on the 4th. And then again, if you've submitted your screenshot to me, thank you. We will include you, actually send it to me via email so we can include you in the live painting session in January. Okay. And that's my way of saying thank you for leaving a review and for taking that time, because I appreciate you. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. So let me see. Oh, good, Denise. I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. Unscribble. Thank you. That really means the world to me. I love to be on these creative journeys that I feel like have lasted a few years. So it's very, very special. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to flip cameras here. Let me get me back here. Okay, let's put me at the top here. Okay, so this right now feels like it's fine. We could leave this painting as is, but if you want to ground your painting, again, by creating a little bit of shadow, so it's subtle, like you probably don't even notice it in this painting until I pull it away, and this one feels like there's maybe too much negative space, like it needs to be grounded. I can even come back to this painting tomorrow and add another layer of texture, another layer of pigment, and really change what it looks like. Like here's all three. So these, I'm gonna see if I can fit this one into. Maybe not. Let me see if I can zoom out a bit more. No, I can't zoom out a bit more. But to show you the variation, so that's from the book, The Exact Painting Project, that I painted last week with, again, a deeper value with the colors. And this one is from today. So look at how many times you can paint the same image and how different it feels. And that's based on your energy for that day, your mood, your experience level grows every time you sit down to paint, and your creative courage grows as well. So it changes, like our handwriting changes based on our mood, how we're feeling, if we're stressed, etc. So have fun and play around, and then even put the date of the day that you've painted whatever project it is you're working on, because you'll even see the growth and the change too, which is really cool. Okay, so I'm going to show you this because any of these colors actually could work for our shadow tones. But I think what I'm going to do is mix a warm undertone. So instead of the cool Payne's gray with the yellow ochre, I think what I'm going to do is use that burnt, the raw umber, because the raw umber, I think with a tiny bit of the Payne's gray will give us a really nice shadow tone. Okay, so we're going to start with that raw umber, and I'm going to show you what it looks like neat with nothing else mixed in. So it's quite goldy, warm tone, adding just a bit more water to the mix. And I'll even take that Payne's gray that we mixed up, and it'll give me a nice greeny kind of brown, which is really pretty. Again, I'll pick up a tiny bit more of that Payne's gray. What I'm looking for is more of a gray sort of shadow. And that feels pretty good, actually. I like that. And I think that it'll go. And because I'm still using colors that we have started with, everything that goes on this page is going to be cohesive and create a beautiful composition, because all of the tones of the colors that we're using are found within this painting. If I were to grab, let's say this, oh, I didn't even use permanent sap green. See, if I were to use the permanent sap green, did I use it in the mix? I did. I used it with Payne's gray. So if I were to use this neat, it's quite a strong, bold color. I'm going to show you. And it's going to stick out. Like, it won't feel like it's cohesive to the painting. So see how it's really, it's like a crisp, really primary green. Then that I feel like won't go as well as something that is more muted. And again, because that's my style of color mixing, it creates that harmony. So once you paint more, you'll start to develop your style through what it is that you're painting, like the motif, the colors that you consistently use, and even the way that you mix your watercolor will start to develop. Okay, so enough talking. I've got my really nice mix here. I'm going to add a bit more water to it. I'm going to try to do this without turning my hand or turning the paper. I'm going to just try to move my hand around, but turn your paper around, really get comfortable. So I have a really nice amount of water. I just want to double check it. And even lighter than that, so your shadow can be really nice and watery and loose. I'm glad I tested it first. So just like that, really nice and watery and loose. And remember, my light source is coming in from this way. So I'm going to start by just starting to put in a little bit of shadow in between the rocks. Again, focusing on my light source coming in from this way. So just on that side of this rock here. And I don't mind if they kind of touch, because it'll give dimension to the rock that's beneath it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can see. And then what I like to do is go right in between to get rid of all of that negative space, so the white space. And then while it's still kind of damp, I can even go back in and create a deeper value of that shadowing. Okay, and this again will start to ground the stones. So again, my light source is coming in from this way. So I'll just bring in that shadow, maybe in here a little bit. And then if you feel like there's you're creating a little bit of demarcation with that harsh line. I'm going to show you how to take care of that. Even in here, I feel like I can go out a little bit. And then see how it changes it just ever so slightly. I'm looking at the screen to see where I can create a little bit more shadow. And then just in here, so going wet on wet, making sure I've got it all. And then if you feel like this is too hard of a line, I just dipped my brush in the water and I'm just going to blend it out a slight bit to create that really nice shadow. Okay, and again, I'll check it. And see where I need to blend it out. Okay, let me zoom back out. There we go. I'm gonna dab a little bit of this just in here. So where the rocks overlap, I feel like need to be a little bit darker. So I'm just dabbing off the excess water because it's fairly wet. I don't want my page to buckle too much, but I do want, like even in that little corner there, I might even pick up some more of this Payne's Gray. Go ahead and soak up the extra water off my brush and dab it in there. And then let it dry. So see how it just grounds it a slight bit? I feel like I took away maybe a little bit too much there. And it gives it a little bit more depth and a little bit more shadow and interest. Yeah, I really like that. I'm just looking at it again. And again, when it fully dries, you can decide how much more you want to add to it, if you want to add more texture or not, and build another layer to it. So yeah, I think we're good. I think we're done. I think we're done. What did you guys think? So was this your first time painting with me? I would love to know. Let's see, Dawn. Oh, amazing. Good. Welcome. Yeah, sometimes I get a little bit like, oh, this and oh, that. So I'm glad I kind of stayed focused today. So hopefully that was easy to follow. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, have an amazing Thanksgiving weekend this weekend. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I'm going to make sure you can still see the stones. So this again is the first painting project you'll find in the book. I just ease you into different things that you get to paint. There are QR codes, which I thought was a really great idea. My publisher had that idea, or the editor, so that you can just scan the QR code and there's no voiceover, just because I think the book's going to be in a few languages, which is kind of cool. But it shows you the technique that I teach. So whether it's, how to hold your brush and painting different brush strokes, you can see a video description or watch a video showing me do that, which I think is really neat. And then for the project, so if there are things like the lamb, which is a cute little one, if you can't draw them, the paper projects, I hope you have so much fun with them. Then of course there are line drawings, and there's also a QR code for the line drawings that you can scan to get. I wanted a full page size of them, so these are quite small. So if you wanted a full page of the mushrooms or the flower or any of the line drawings, you can scan the QR code and download a PDF that has them in full page size, which I think will be really helpful. So yeah, again, just making it really easy, stress-free. Okay, any other questions before I wish you well? Say thank you again. Yeah, share with me what you think. So now that it's finally out, I would love to share what you're doing with it. So again, tag me at Life-I-Design. Email me the screenshot, Nicki Traikos, or Nicki@lifeidesign.com. Maybe I'll even put that in so you can copy paste it. If you're sharing on Instagram again, then go ahead and tag me at Life-I-Design. You can watch my Canon. I still have it here. There's like confetti on my desk. This is the confetti Canon that my husband got me. So super supportive. It's, it's always great to celebrate positive things, especially with everything that we're faced with in this crazy world in these crazy times. So celebrate your painting sessions, make it cozy, light a candle, drink something really yummy, play some beautiful music, and make that time that you spend on your art practice, something that you just love and enjoy, that fills you up, boosts you with happy hormones, and Yeah, and just have fun painting. I hope you do anyway. Yay, Kim got her book. Okay, I usually watch and paint later. Yeah. Oh, first time painting along. Amazing. Oh, so good. And again, for those of you who were stressed about not having the book in time for today, I knew that it was going to be a few days maybe before everyone got their pre-order copies. So I'm glad that it was slow enough that you can paint. Maybe even share with me what you painted during the live. I would love to share that as well, and just see your versions of the stones. Be inspired again when you're out in nature. I constantly have things that I pick up. If you watched my video from England, I did mudlarking. Oh my God, I want to go back and do that. This is a pine cone that I picked up. And again, if you have to hop off, thank you. Feel free. But you know, I get distracted. Let me go in. Here we go. So this is a pine cone that I picked up in the fall from a forest hike that we were in. And just again, I'm inspired, right? So I'll mist it so that it doesn't completely dry out. But I look for color sources. So I'll look at the greens and the really nice muted tone of the sepia brown, and I try to mix them and I try to have them reflect what's in my paintings. And that's how you start to develop your style. I'm going to leave this right here actually because it's so beautiful. That's how you start to develop your style as an artist, and you'll go back to colors that you love. And I'm even looking at my color swatches here, and I love these really just cool, light, beautiful swatches that'll probably find its way into a future painting, which is really neat. Okay. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for being in this space. I know you've been in this space for a long time. Okay, so let's close it up. If you want to watch the replay, it will always be here waiting for you. We'll send out an email probably with the reminder or the link in case you want to watch it again. Thank you again so much for pre-ordering the book. I know it was a long time to wait, and it was a long time for us to wait too. And I'm glad that almost everyone has the copy. And again, just enjoy painting with it. If you have enjoyed it, or if you want to take a few moments to leave a review, I'd really appreciate it. I've got some thank yous as a thank you for it. And I hope this book is just another way to support you on your painting watercolor journey. We do have a few things coming up before the end of the year. So if you have seen the France trip, that's another amazing thing. We'll be sharing more of that soon, but I have brushes coming out again. So the round brushes, if you didn't get any the first few rounds, we're getting more of these, but I developed a new set of brushes that I'm hoping you're going to enjoy painting lush, loose florals and landscapes. I've got more to come in the new year. If you have suggestions for what you'd like to see in the new year in terms of classes, resources, I'm all ears. I'm in the planning mode, so please let me know. And I would be more than happy to have a look at what you would like to learn next, or maybe go deeper in exploring and painting with me. Actually, one last thing, if you are in my wreath painting class or have taken the wreath painting class, we have a live session beginning of December. We're going to paint some wreaths together, and I'll show you how to make some greeting cards really quickly. And that's just, again, a live bonus for that class. So, and if you haven't taken that class, you should join us. It's a 15-minute watercolor wreaths, just super easy, fun things to paint. Okay, let me just see if there's any more questions before we hop off. My pleasure, Betty. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Oh, thank you, Brenda. Okay, awesome. Thank you again so much. I hope you had fun. I had fun hanging out with you. Thank you for helping me celebrate today. It's a big day, and I will see you next time. Happy painting, everyone.